We've always looked up at the moon. It lights up our nights. It pulls the ocean tides. It has inspired poems, paintings, songs, even love. But what if I told you the moon might not be what we think it is? Not just a dead rock, not just a lucky accident floating in space, but something built, placed, or worse, watching. That might sound crazy, but what's truly crazy is how much we've been told not to ask. Let's start with something simple. Have you ever asked, where did the moon come from? Science says it was created after a giant impact. A Mars-sized object hit Earth, and debris formed the moon. But here's the problem. Even today, scientists can't agree on how that would actually work. The moon is way too big for a typical satellite. Its orbit is strangely perfect. Its influence on Earth, from tides to stabilizing our planet's tilt, is so precise that if it were even slightly different, life as we know it wouldn't exist. It's almost like the moon was put there on purpose. And then there's the ancient stories. The Zulu people in Africa say the moon was dragged across the sky by two brothers, gods from another world, who brought it here. Ancient Greek philosophers like Anaxagoras described the moon as a mirror or even a hollow shell. The ancient Sumerians had texts that hinted the moon didn't exist in the sky during early human history. Think about that. Humans alive before there was a moon? How do so many civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, share the same strange idea? But wait, it gets weirder. When NASA sent astronauts to the moon, something happened no one expected. In 1969, the Apollo 12 mission dropped a part of their spacecraft onto the moon to test its seismic response. The moon didn't just shake, it rang like a bell for over an hour. That's not normal. Rocks don't do that. But hollow structures, resonant chambers, those do. Later missions showed the same thing. The moon kept ringing, so NASA quietly stopped talking about it. And when astronauts were asked what they really saw up there, many became strangely silent. Some hinted at things they weren't allowed to say. Others spoke in metaphors. One even said, it was as if we were being watched. There are photos that show strange shadows, geometric towers, and impossible shapes on the lunar surface. Not craters, not natural formations, but lines, symmetry, patterns. The kind you'd expect from design, not chance. And still, the space agencies say, nothing. Why? Why has no one returned in over 50 years? Why has all new moon footage been scrubbed clean of anomalies? Why did they stop just when they were about to dig deeper? Maybe we're not supposed to dig deeper. Maybe the moon holds secrets about our world that would change everything. The story of the moon is not just about rocks and dust. It's about something ancient, something placed, something hidden, and it connects with stories far older than NASA, older than history books, stories that whisper about watchers from the sky, about cosmic battles, and about gods who came and never left. The moon may be quiet, but its silence is hiding something loud, and once you hear it, you can never unhear it. The further back you look into history, the stranger the moon becomes. Today we're told it's always been there, but many ancient cultures disagree. They speak of a time before the moon, a time when the night sky was different, when something massive suddenly appeared and changed everything. Let's start with Africa. The Zulu people, one of the oldest cultures on Earth, tell a story passed down through thousands of years. According to Zulu legend, the moon was not part of the original Earth. They say two brothers, Wowane and Mpanku, who came from the stars, stole the moon from a dragon and rolled it across the sky, placing it above Earth. They say this is what caused floods, chaos, and the beginning of time as we know it. The Zulu priests described the moon as hollow, a shell that was placed to watch humanity. This isn't science fiction. This is their sacred tradition. Now let's travel to South America. The ancient Mayans too had lunar myths that didn't speak of the moon as just a light in the sky, but as a powerful being, one that appeared suddenly, bringing both knowledge and destruction. In fact, many cultures associate the moon with gods, but not benevolent ones. Often these are watchers, tricksters, or beings of dual nature, helpful yet terrifying. And it gets even stranger when we examine Sumerian texts. The Sumerians, one of the first advanced civilizations in recorded history, wrote about celestial beings from the heavens called the Anunnaki. These beings, according to some interpretations, came from a planet beyond Earth and altered our world forever. Some researchers believe these ancient texts describe a craft, a large celestial body, that was placed into Earth's orbit. Sound familiar? It's the same theme again. The moon was placed, not formed. Even the ancient Greeks had their doubts. Aristotle and Plutarch wrote about a time when Arcadia, a region in Greece, existed before the moon. The people there were called proselenes, literally meaning before the moon. How could that even be possible? They believed the moon arrived after humanity. Across the world in Bolivia, the Tiwanaku culture also described a time when the moon had not yet entered the sky. Their temples aligned not with the moon, but with stars and the sun only, as if lunar tracking didn't matter, because it wasn't there yet. All these stories, from completely disconnected cultures, Africa, South America, Greece, Mesopotamia, and they all describe the same thing, a time when the moon wasn't in the sky. Now ask yourself, how is that possible? How could civilizations who never spoke to each other, living on opposite sides of the earth, come up with the same strange idea? Coincidence or memory? Let's take it even further. Why do so many of these stories also say the moon is hollow? Not just placed, but empty? In legends from Asia, the moon is called the mirror of heaven. In India, it's seen as a reflector of karma, but also a watcher, a recorder. Even in the Book of Enoch, which was banned from the Bible, the moon is called a heavenly luminary that was set in place to observe the world. Now think about that, not just a light in the sky, but something with purpose, with intent, something built, and maybe something watching. Modern science doesn't like to deal with ancient stories. It says they're just myths, metaphors, imagination. But what if they're not? What if the reason these stories are so consistent is because they're not just legends, but memories passed down through time? Memories of something massive arriving in the sky, something that changed the world overnight, that altered the balance of nature, of seasons, of human consciousness. Imagine how terrifying that would be to a civilization who had no science, no satellites, no explanation. A giant object suddenly hovering in the sky that pulls oceans, affects behavior, and never goes away. You wouldn't forget that. You'd tell your children. You'd turn it into myth, into story, into sacred truth. And the story would survive, even when the facts were lost. And now, here we are. We've landed on the moon. We've walked on it. But we still don't know why it rings like a bell, why its orbit is so perfect, or why so many ancient people feared it. The question is no longer, what is the moon? It's why was it put there? And if these ancient stories are right, then the next section will explain who or what may be responsible. Because there's a hidden timeline buried in our history, and the moon might just be the key to unlocking it. By the time humanity finally reached the moon in 1969, you'd think the mystery would have ended. But it didn't. In fact, it only got weirder. What NASA discovered up there wasn't just strange. It was something they didn't want to talk about. And the deeper you look, the more you realize we may not be the first ones to step on the moon. Let's start with something most people don't know. During the Apollo 12 mission, NASA intentionally crashed a lunar module onto the moon's surface to test seismic activity. What happened next shocked everyone. The moon rang. Not just a vibration, not just a thud. It rang like a bell for nearly an hour. This wasn't a poetic metaphor. This was an actual scientific observation. The official explanation? Unusual seismic reverberations. That's code for, we don't know. Now ask yourself, what kind of natural body rings like a bell when struck? Not a solid rock, not a dense planet, but something hollow. This gave birth to what many call the hollow moon theory. It sounds ridiculous, right? And yet, that one experiment, and many that followed, kept pointing in the same direction. The moon is not what it seems. Some scientists quietly suggested that the moon might have a thin crust and a hollow center. Others warned them to stop. It became one of those subjects you just don't bring up if you want to keep your funding. But that wasn't all. The Apollo missions returned with photographs, some of which were later misplaced. Others were quietly taken down, but not before people noticed. In multiple images, strange shadows appear on the surface. Not random craters, not normal rock formations. We're talking about sharp angles, geometric structures, tower-like objects, casting perfect lines of shadow in straight directions, almost like something artificial. There are also photos showing rectangular shapes buried in the lunar dust, and long, trench-like lines, perfectly straight, that extend for miles. How do you explain that? Random geology doesn't make rectangles. And even if you believe it's all a coincidence, there's more. During the Apollo 17 mission, the last manned mission to the moon, a strange clip surfaced. It showed a glowing object hovering above the lunar surface in the background. NASA cut the feed. The footage was later denied. And here's the strange part. After that mission, NASA stopped going. No follow-ups, no settlements, no return in over 50 years, despite having better technology now than ever before. Why? They claim there was nothing left to explore. But ask yourself, does that sound like us? We build cities in deserts. We dive into the deepest oceans. We fly drones into volcanoes just to get data. And we just stop going to the moon? Permanently? It doesn't add up. Even some astronauts began to question what they saw. Buzz Aldrin hinted at strange lights following the craft. Other mission members reported hearing eerie sounds, mechanical humming, and unexplained signals. And then, there are the official audio recordings that were classified for years. In one leaked conversation, a voice says, "They're watching us." The other replies, "Yes, we're being observed." Some say this was taken out of context. Others say it was never meant for the public at all. And still, the mystery deepens. Why was so much of this erased, edited, or buried? Why were original recordings, tapes, and images lost? Supposedly by accident. NASA, one of the most advanced organizations on Earth, lost its own moon footage? If you believe that, you'd believe anything. But maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe what they found wasn't what they expected. Maybe the moon wasn't just a lifeless rock. Maybe it was something ancient, something built, something already occupied. Now, let's connect the dots. Ancient cultures said the moon was hollow and placed there. Modern science says the moon shouldn't be able to exist the way it does. And now NASA, the only organization to put humans on the moon, finds evidence of hollow-like behavior, geometric structures, and anomalies they can't explain. And instead of investigating further, they stop going. What does that tell you? Something doesn't add up. And the more you look, the more it feels like we've been kept in the dark. Not just about space, but about where we really are and what's watching us from above. Because maybe the moon isn't just a natural object orbiting our planet. Maybe it's a vault, a machine, a relic from a civilization older than Earth itself. And in the next chapter, we'll uncover the scientific reasons why the moon, mathematically, structurally, and physically, should not even exist. And yet, there it is. There's something strange about the moon. We've looked at its surface, we've measured its sound, we've seen its shadows. But what if we're still missing the biggest truth? What if the moon isn't even natural? That's not a new idea. In fact, it's older than you think. And it didn't come from conspiracy theorists, it came from scientists. In the 1970s, two Soviet scientists, Michael Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov, published a bold paper. Their theory? The moon is not a moon at all. It's a machine. They called it an artificial satellite, built by unknown beings, hollow on the inside, and placed in Earth's orbit on purpose. They weren't trying to be dramatic. They were looking at the facts, and the facts didn't make sense. Let's go back. The moon is the perfect size and distance to create total solar eclipses. It's 400 times smaller than the sun, but also 400 times closer to Earth. A perfect fit. That's like flipping a coin and having it land on its side, again and again. Coincidence? Maybe. But there's more. The moon's orbit is almost perfectly circular. That's rare for moons. It also doesn't spin freely like most celestial objects. Instead, it's tidally locked, always showing the same face to Earth. And then, there's its effect on us. The moon controls our tides. It stabilizes our planet's tilt. It shapes our seasons and balances Earth's rotation. Without it, our world would be chaos. Now think about that. A hollow object, perfectly sized, perfectly placed, perfectly timed. What are the odds? That's why some began asking the forbidden question. What if it was put there? What if someone or something built it? Let's entertain the idea for a moment. If you were an advanced intelligence, capable of building structures beyond our understanding, and you wanted to study Earth, what would be the perfect place to observe without being seen? A floating object in the sky, something humans would accept as natural, something large, round, and ever-present, something we'd grow up with and never question. Now let's go deeper. Some believe the moon is a monitoring station, placed in orbit to watch us. This would explain why the same side always faces Earth. The dark side, the far side, is the hidden part. And guess what? When we finally got photos of the moon's far side, we found anomalies. Crater walls that looked more like geometric cuts, massive towers, oddly shaped hills, and regions that seemed covered in strange formations, not typical to impact zones. And even to this day, most space agencies focus on the near side. Why? It's safer, easier to reach, or is it restricted? Let's go back to the question. Why build a moon? There are three possible answers. First, to stabilize Earth. Without the moon, Earth would tilt wildly over time. That would destroy climate cycles and make life difficult. So maybe the moon was designed to keep this planet alive, like a gyroscope keeps a ship balanced. Second, to control tides. Tides are vital to ocean currents, to marine life, to weather. No moon? No balance. It's like the moon is a hidden switch, a quiet engineer in the sky. Third, surveillance. Maybe it's a listening post, a giant eye that watches but never blinks, a system that tracks our evolution, and if so, who's watching? This leads to the most uncomfortable idea of all, that we are not alone. And maybe we never were. If the moon was built, it means someone built it. A civilization far more advanced than ours, older, quieter, hidden. This theory connects back to the ancient stories. The Zulu people of South Africa said the moon was brought here long ago by two brothers from the stars. They called it the egg of the sky, and they said it changed everything. The Mayans believed the moon was tied to cosmic cycles, not just light and darkness, but consciousness. In Sumerian tablets, the moon is described as a ship of the gods. Were they speaking symbolically, or did they know something we've forgotten? Today, modern science calls it all myth. They say the moon is natural, but when pressed, they admit, we don't really know how it got there. Let that sink in. We can map galaxies billions of light years away, but we don't know how our own moon came to be. It's possible the moon is older than Earth itself. It's possible the moon was placed there on purpose. And it's possible someone's still inside. If this sounds like science fiction, remember, most science fiction eventually becomes fact. Planes were once impossible. So were satellites. So was the idea of walking on the moon. So if the moon is a machine, a relic, a monitor, then it means we've been living under someone else's creation the entire time. And if that's true, what else haven't they told us? Because in the next section, we're going to expose the ancient texts and forbidden stories from around the world, all pointing to one shared secret. The moon wasn't made for light, it was made for control. Have you ever wondered why we never went back? We landed on the moon in 1969. We did it again, and again, 6 times in total. Then suddenly, nothing. No more landings, no more astronauts walking its surface, no more flags planted in the dust. Just silence for over 50 years. In that time, our technology has exploded. We've put rovers on Mars, we've built space stations, we've launched telescopes that can see the edge of the universe. And yet, We haven't returned to the place that's right above us, the closest celestial body to Earth, the moon. Why? NASA says it's about money, budgets, priorities, but when you look closer, something doesn't add up. Let's start with the Apollo missions. The original goal was to explore the moon, to map it, study it, understand it. But after Apollo 17 in 1972, the missions were stopped. Just like that. Even though Apollo 18, 19, and 20 were already planned and approved, they were quietly canceled. No major announcements, no public explanations. Just erased. And here's where it gets strange. During the missions that did happen, several astronauts reported unusual things. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong both described strange lights following their spacecraft. NASA's own transcripts show moments of confusion, of silence, of what they call technical difficulties. Radio transmissions that suddenly cut out, signals jammed, camera feeds that went black. Then there's the footage. Some of it looks edited, jump cuts, missing frames, entire minutes of silence. It wasn't just one mission, it was all of them. And when researchers started asking questions, they hit walls. Requests for data were denied. High-resolution photos went missing. Original moon landing tapes were lost. Let that sink in. The most important footage in human history, gone. NASA later said they reused the tapes, recorded over them, like home videos from the 90s. Really? The greatest achievement of our species? Taped over? Now here's something even more unsettling. In a leaked conversation, allegedly between Armstrong and Mission Control, he mentions watchers on the moon. He says they're being observed, warned, that they're enormous and watching us. NASA denies this, but the audio exists. Other astronauts in their later years hinted at things they couldn't talk about. Edgar Mitchell said, "There has been contact, but it's been covered up." Gordon Cooper claimed to see UFOs during flight, and yet the official story remains. We went, we left. Nothing strange happened. So why the silence? Some believe there's something on the moon they don't want us to see. Structures, signals, evidence. Others think we were told to leave by forces more advanced than us. And maybe we listened. Because here's the truth. No other country has sent humans to the moon. Not Russia, not China, not anyone. They've orbited. They've sent probes, but never boots on the ground. And yet, space budgets have never been higher. It's almost as if the moon is off limits. Now ask yourself, who decides that? Who controls space? Who decides what missions happen and which ones don't? Who filters the data? And what gets released? It's not just NASA. There's a global network of space agencies, but they all work together. They all report to higher powers, military, government, private contractors. We're told it's for national security. But what if it's something deeper? What if the truth about the moon changes everything? Think about it. If the moon isn't what we think it is, if it was placed there, if it's hollow, if it's artificial, then every story we've been told unravels. Our history, our science, our place in the universe, gone. And maybe that's the real reason they stay silent. Because if people knew the full truth, they'd start asking bigger questions. In the next section, we'll dive into the evidence from ancient civilizations, cultures that left behind symbols, myths, and warnings about the moon, long before science ever pointed a telescope to the sky. Because long ago, our ancestors already knew. The moon isn't just a rock, it's a message, and someone doesn't want us to hear it. What if everything we've been told about the moon was only part of the truth? What if the real story was hidden? For thousands of years, we've looked up and wondered. The moon has always been there, watching, glowing, pulling at our tides and our thoughts. We sing about it. We dream under it. But maybe we never really understood it. Ancient civilizations across the world left us clues, strange legends, unexplained symbols, stories about a time before the moon. Yes, before the moon. The Zulus say it was brought here. The Sumerians wrote of it being placed. And modern science? It tells us a story full of gaps, silence, and edited data. Why? Why are there missing tapes from the Apollo missions? Why did astronauts go radio silent when they landed? Why does NASA never go back? Maybe because the moon isn't just a lifeless rock. Maybe it's a relic, a structure, a message. Maybe we were never supposed to find out. And yet here we are, questioning, searching, waking up. If you've stayed with me until now, you're not like most people. You're one of the few who dares to think differently, to challenge the narrative, to ask the questions others are too afraid to ask. And that's why this journey doesn't stop here. The truth is layered. It's hidden beneath myths, buried in forgotten texts, and scattered in shadows. But every piece you uncover brings you closer. If you felt a shift during this video, if even one part of your mind whispered something's not right, that means you're ready. And if you want to keep going, deeper, wider, and stranger than ever before, hit that like button and subscribe. Not for numbers, not for fame, but to make sure you never miss the truths they don't want you to hear. Because here, we uncover what was buried, we shine light where they've drawn curtains, and together, we remember what they've worked so hard to make us forget. So stay curious, stay brave, and stay awake, because the next mystery might already be watching us from just beyond the clouds.